Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. I'm back with a part 2 to the Zero Tolerance Trouble in Paradise video review, and I wanted to cover a couple things and give some people some updates. This is going to contain two main topics. One is going to be a summary and conclusion of the zero tolerance return and repair procedures and process, and the second part is going to actually be the knife review. So basically, if you didn't catch the first, part one, I'll put a link in the video so you can click on that. And if you don't want to watch the first part where I summarize and give you a conclusion and my feedback about zero tolerance and their warranty services, then I'll also annotate probably right here where you can skip ahead the time in the video to get right into the knife review. So this has been a pretty informative process, a good learning experience anyway for me. Very straightforward to return something with zero tolerance. It was very simple. The majority of it's automated. You go to their website, I think you scroll down to the bottom and you click on like warranty and returns. You fill out a form, you package up your knives, you ship them out, they fix them. So make sure if you end up doing something like that you really read over all of the documentation throughout that process, just to make sure that you don't make things worse on yourself. And what I mean by that is, if you're sending something back to any knife maker to be repaired or corrected, you're probably already not having the best day. So make sure you're not making it worse on yourself by overlooking something that complicates the process. One minor thing that I noticed, and I caught before I shipped my knives out, but Kai does annotate in this process that if you want these boxes back, the original packaging, don't send it to them because they trash everything. So I sent these knives in the little plastic baggies, little bubble wrap baggies that they come in anyway inside the box, and they ship them back in these. I put some other packing material in the box with the shipping form, and it didn't take them very long. Actually, they did really good. See that right there? It says received April 27th. I got these back let's see, May 15th. So I think, if I recall, they estimate 6 to 8 weeks turnaround time, and they definitely kicked that estimate's ass. They did a really good job. I mean, only a couple weeks there and I got this back, so that's impressive. I was very happy about that. And even though everything's pretty much automated, it was very quick, timely response, very simple. So once I submitted everything, I got an email back probably within 10 to 15 minutes from Kai. I got a couple of them. The first one was just confirming that I've made this submission, and then there was a secondary one. It looked like somebody actually did look into it, probably created a ticket of some sort, and actually referenced something that was key to my return, which was I put links to my initial part 1 video, and they actually, when they responded, they put those links in there and acknowledged that they had seen them. So it looks like they watched everything, and the more I go into this, I'll explain why I'm pretty sure they did, because some of the things that I didn't even complain about, they corrected based on my viewers' comments, which is pretty awesome. So kudos to Zero Tolerance on that. Very nicely done. Again, I'll get into that more in a little bit. So to get right into it, the problems that I had with this model here, which is the 0452 Carbon Fiber Edition, was that it was locking up at 100%. Excuse me, fighting off a head cold, so bear with me if I'm constantly clearing my throat. The problem was only that. There was really no other problems that I would send it into the manufacturer for. There's one thing that one of my viewers pointed out, which I did notice and I was not very pleased with. There was some holes in the finish of the carbon fiber. In other words, the finish just wasn't very good on the carbon fiber that I got. It was right up in here, and there's a couple other spots too. Notice that those are not there anymore. So I would be pretty confident to say that they just swapped out the scale, which is great. I really admire that. You know, like I mentioned in the part 1, I did that video for a couple reasons. One, I really wanted everyone else to see what I was experiencing, to find out if they were having problems. And 2, I wanted to make it easier for Zero Tolerance to understand what was going on. So when they watch that video and show that they care, I guess you could say, you know, that they're mindful of it, that, you know, actions speak louder than words there. They fixed that, and I didn't even ask them to, so that's pretty cool. I gotta give them 2 thumbs up on that. Attention to that. That was really awesome. So anyway, the problem I had was, after using this very lightly, not lightly like cutting envelopes or a string, but cutting boxes, and only cutting like the top flaps off two or 3 boxes, and nothing crazy. But I was going through them, and when I was doing that, I was really torquing down, and I was gripping really hard on my knife. And when I did, I looked at the lockup engagement, and the lock bar had went all the way over to the right, locked up at 100%, and it bound that way. There's lock rock. I couldn't fold the knife closed anymore. So it was a complete failure. A folding knife is only as good as its lock. Okay, it needs to be able to lock open, and it needs to be able to fold closed, hence folding knife. So it was, you know, faulty. It was totally, you know, dead at that point. So one thing I need to point out, and I don't want to go into this too much because I don't want to bore people, but I'm very particular about lockup percentage. Okay, and the way I summarize it is with an analogy. The percentage of lockup on a frame lock knife is similar to when you look at the odometer on a car. It gives you a generalized idea of the life left in that vehicle. And that is how I view lockup percentage on a frame lock knife. If it locks up when you first flip the blade open, and it locks up at a percentage that looks like there's a lot of life in the knife, that means nothing unless you plan on really not using your knife. If you plan on really using your knife the way it's intended and really cutting with it, that could be cutting anything from paper to wood or carpet or cardboard or whatever, something that's really putting torque and pressure on that blade, on the pivot, on the handle, on the lock. If you plan on doing that, or like me, have more of a preparedness sort of mind where you'd like to know that you could if you wanted to or had to, then this applies to you, and it really does matter. Again, it's subjective. If you're not going to be looking to use your knife, you really don't care about that. They're more of just, I just want to collect it and look at it and, you know, put it on display and look at it like pocket jewelry or something. That's totally fine, and this really isn't much of an issue. But when I just flip that blade open, you can see that the lockup is at about 45%. I wouldn't complain about that. I do like it earlier, but this is a very thin knife and whatever, not the end of the world. But again, that is not an indication of the life left in the knife. You cannot look and determine how much life is left in this lock until you do this. You squeeze the handle as hard as you can for a little bit. That's step 1. Step 2 is, once you're done doing that, just press a little bit more on the side here. Don't go crazy, don't try to make this thing fail, but give it a good amount of pressure, because after extended use with your knife and cutting a lot, that's going to continue to slide over until it stops. And it's going to stop based on a few different variables, but the main thing is if there's proper blade tang geometry, if there's a proper angle to the bottom of the blade where the lock bar is engaging. As you can see here, this is now slid over quite a bit and is still very close to the other side here. Is it at 100%? No. I mean, if I just push a little bit harder, can I push it over even further? Yeah, very easily. I didn't have to put much pressure. I mean, let's touch it a little bit more. I mean, it's so easily moving all the way over to about 80%. And unfortunately for me, that's still a fail. That's not something I can comfortably keep in my collection and own or use. So yeah, you know, it's unfortunate. The good news is it's not going all the way over. Before, I would put that same amount of pressure on it, and it would just press right over and make contact on the other side there, and then it would bind, which really sucked. And now I can push it over, so at least it's not sticking, and I'm not, you know, unable to close the knife. But I'm basically looking at this, you know, kind of going back to my analogy earlier. See, look at that. I just barely pushed a little, and now it's like, it's pretty much 100% lockup again. Just because it's not touching the carbon fiber doesn't mean it's 100% lockup. If you look at the steel lock bar insert, the very right side of it, and if you look at the very right side of this blade tang, they're pretty much aligned. That's like, I don't know if you can really catch it, that's like 99%, 98% lockup there, if you really look closely. Anyway, so that's just, and that bound a little bit, but I could get it out. So that's unfortunate. You know, what I was going to say is, when you have late lockup like that, that to me is like having, you know, buying a brand new car with 100,000 miles on it. You know, is it at the very end of its life? Not necessarily, but it's got a lot more miles on it than I would like it to have. And this is just not something I have confidence in. You know, I think that with as much detail and attention to detail that Zero Tolerance often has with their products, and especially with this particular warranty, service, and review, I think that they did a good job overall. But on this knife, unfortunately, they failed. It's really nice that they replaced the scale, but I don't think you can fix what's broken in the first place. And I think that's what I'm really getting to. I think that you're going to see that I only had one or two people respond saying they're having the same exact problem. Okay. And I think last I looked, there was like 1,100 or 1,200 views on this video. You know, some people don't respond. Some people don't have the knife. Most people won't have this knife. But those who do, I'm really going to go ahead and say there was quite a few people who responded and said, I didn't have that problem, and I'm really glad to hear that. I think that they also mentioned that higher up in the model numbers, I think they had like in the thousands or something like that instead of the hundreds like I have here. Maybe they worked out the kinks, but I think it's a problem with their blade tang geometry. You know, I don't know what Zero Tolerance tried to do to fix this. It clearly didn't work. But I don't know if they just replaced the steel lock bar insert. But I would have thought they would have actually tried to push this over, and they would have squeezed it and realized that, yeah, this is just not going to work. I guess not. Maybe they just simply can't fix it because the blade tang is wrong, in which case they need to swap out the blade and give me one that has proper, you know, tang geometry. Regardless, I don't have confidence in the knife. I don't want it anymore, plain and simple. It's just, you know, it's very thin, which is really nice. It's a very elegant design. I love this design. I think it looks good. I think it had potential, and I think that with really thin materials, you have to be really precise. Let me grab you a different knife and show you what I mean by that. So this knife is exceptionally thin, much thinner than the one that I'm reviewing now. It's called the Morph. It's a Russian-made knife. It's a mid-tech made by Custom Knife Factory. And I'm going to have to do a separate review because this thing's just freaking awesome. But the reason why I bring it out is because it's very thin. Very, very, very thin. Okay? And it's thinner than this knife by a little bit. And the actual handle material is noticeably thinner. I think you can see that anyway. It is thinner, and it's very similar, titanium on the backside and carbon fiber on the other. Actually, I think this is G10, but anyway. The lockup on this one, when I push as hard as I can, it stops at about, I'd call that 50% lockup. 51, 52%. It stops right there. You can't push this thing over any further, no matter how hard I squeeze. You know, it doesn't matter. Still, yeah, same thing, 50, 51. So it's all about geometry. It's all about your tolerances and making sure everything's done right. I was very skeptical, if I could talk, I was very skeptical about this knife because it was so thin. It proved to be very durable and reliable. So, hey, you know, do it right, and you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have a thin, really comfortable pocket knife, you know, a knife in the pocket, and it can be reliable. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing that this model is. So yeah, this one's gonna have to go. Don't want it anymore. All right. So for some additional information about this knife, this one had a problem, if you recall, where the actual frame lock here, the detent ball on the inside was getting caught when the knife was closed. It was getting caught in this secondary detent. Okay, see the one larger, shallower hole and then the smaller, deeper one there? What would happen is this lock bar, if there's ever any pressure put on it, would click right into that secondary detent and literally lock the knife in the closed position. You could not deploy the blade. And this happened almost every time it was pulled out of my pocket, because of the pressure between my leg and the inside of my pocket would put a little strain on this lock bar here. I've never seen that before, but to my surprise, that is possible. Well, one of the commenters, one of the viewers who left a comment about this knife was dead on. He said, take a carbide bit and basically just kind of round out that right hand side there. I don't think he specified the right hand side, but that's kind of self-apparent, you know, like that's the direction the detent ball is going to go, hence this track right here. Just kind of round it out, and that's probably going to allow it to just slide right on out of that detent ball when or the detent when it gets locked in there. That's what they did. Now, I don't have a workshop set up yet with a drill press. This is a very precision sort of thing. You got to make sure you do it right. Otherwise, you get a sloppy detent, and that's just no good. So that's what they did. They nailed it. And guess what, guys? Success. I've carried this now since Friday, since I got it. It's now Monday, and I've had no problems. None whatsoever. And I'm really, really happy, because this was, of the two, the one I really liked more anyway. And I'll get into that in the review, but yeah, they fixed it. Good job, Zero Tolerance. Thank you very much. They did a wonderful job. The only thing that, a little critique, I sent it to him with the blade centered, and it's definitely not centered. It's about as far off centered as you can go to the right there without quite touching the G10 on the inside. Way off center. So, whatever, not the end of the world. I can fix that. No problem. But, you know, 50-50, you know, and it's you know what, they really tried to, you can tell. They replaced the scale. I don't know if you noticed the little scratch on this blade. That was already there. It's very minor. I wonder if I can even pick it up. You might be able to see it. It's like right up in here. Yeah, there you go. Very minor. That was me. That was not them. So I think they did what they could. It's just a bad blade grind on the blade tang there. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm very I really wanted to start getting a collection of every sort every single variation of every zero tolerance knife they had. I was going to kind of go nuts with that. And I hate to say it, but not wanting to have that knife in my collection anymore has made me kind of change my mind. So I think I'm going to definitely keep collecting zero tolerances. I'm going to be really skeptical going forward with thinner designs, and their lockups have seemed to be, 90% of the zero tolerance frame locks that I get are way later lockup than I think is acceptable. Way later. And it's been going on for a long time. So, I have to take it for what it is. It's hopefully something they'll fix. But if not, then I'm just not going to buy their knives. Or I'm not going to keep them in my collection. I'll probably give them a shot because they make really good knives. But, I'm going to be checking for this every time. And if they keep doing stuff like this, I don't want it. What a great knife. Until I saw this. This one's for sale, And lock rock on that one too, to pry that open. How about this? 777, no problem. That's as far over as it goes. See, that's what they need to do. Make them all like that. So, anyway, you can't get it right every time, but I think they need to realize, yeah, it's really stuck. They need to realize how important it is to get their locks figured out. So anyway, bye-bye and hello. This thing is awesome. So, I'll get right into reviewing this one first. I'm a big fan of it because, not only because of its exclusiveness, this is the 0454 204P variation. They've had, this one, which is, the lowest in production cost. And then this is pretty much on par with the original 0454 that had the composite blade and the subframe lock, and it was pretty cool, and now it's, discontinued, so there's like a huge increase on the price in the secondary market, and they're really expensive if you want one. So it's definitely not worth the cost that they're selling them for now, not even close, but it's still an awesome knife. This, to me, I like it better because I want to use this knife. That other one with the composite blade is more of a showpiece for me. It's more of a collector's item. It's not something I really want to beat up. This thing I cannot wait to use. And that's why I'm so adamant about the lock bar percentage and some of those minor details, because I really do want to go out and use these knives and really put them to the test and see what they're made of. Again, I'm not going to abuse them, I'm just going to use them. So this knife is weighing in at about 4.8 ounces. And comparatively, that's another half ounce over this one. Okay, and that mostly comes because this is not contoured. It is beveled or chamfered, if you will, on these flat slabs of carbon fiber and titanium, so it does make it comfortable in the hand, but this is fully contoured. In other words, the handle material is completely rounded on both sides. And it does make it noticeably more comfortable in the hand. So still, for a knife this large, 4.8 ounces is pretty exceptional. This knife is very light, the 777. Okay, again, about a 4-inch blade, and it's I think like 4.1 or 4.2 ounces, and that's exceptional. When you have a blade, much like I like the blade to handle ratio to be as close as possible, which this is pretty damn good. I also like the blade to weight ratio to be as close as possible. Sometimes that just isn't going to happen because you're getting some tank of a knife, and that's okay. But this is something that I really want to be that this is my big EDC knife. I really think it could be. And especially when you have, it's a 4.1 inch blade and a 4.8 ounce weight. That's pretty close to 1-to-1. And you get a lot. You really get a lot. Because lots of times when you're saving a lot of weight, and again, this is a good example, It's very thin and it's really not ergonomic. Okay, it's not uncomfortable, but if you really want to, grip down on it, or you really want to use it hard, not the best option. It's just not that comfortable. It's really thin, and you're going to get a lot of hot spots. Nice in the pocket though, because it's thin. This kind of mixes the best of both worlds. This is only 0.56 inches thick. It's not exceptionally thin, but in comparison, this is about, a ½ inch thick. So 0.5, 0.56. Not a big difference. Barely noticeable in the pocket. Both carry very well in the pocket. This one just gives you even more comfort in the hand. And you get that G10, which gives you a little bit more traction with these striations in it. You get on both sides, on the titanium as well. Gives you a little bit more traction, if you're going this way anyway. Steel pocket clip, very low profile. And I love that because, again, comfort in hand is just exceptional. I mean, when you're gripping this on either side, you really don't even feel that pocket clip. You feel a little bit more when I'm holding it this way because it's right by my fingers, but when it's in my right hand, you can barely even notice it in my palm. I forget that the clip's really there. So that's really nice, and it works well, even though it's very, low. I was kind of worried there wouldn't be enough clearance to get my pockets under there, and I've always been able to, whether I'm wearing jeans or shorts or whatever, one hand enter and exit out of the pocket, no problem. As you can see on this model, you only have the ability to carry right-handed. You cannot switch it to left carry on this side. Lanyard hold just like on the other model. Different from the other model, you have titanium on the back spacer as well. The other model has these two standoffs that are steel. This just kind of adds to a more finished, higher end, a little more custom appearance in my opinion. And it also kind of ties in, I like the jimping, how it wraps around here. It's kind of cool because it kind of matches that here. You have the jimping here, and then it wraps around here. Kind of cool. You have the traditional pivot design that you saw on the 0454. I think this is more of a satin. I think it was more polished on the original 0454. You have some nice jimping on the flipper here, which I think is very needed for this. This design, if you pay attention in my previous video, I was flipping it and my finger slipped off probably more than once, and that'll probably happen to you if you own this knife because the flipper is very small and it's very much towards the top here, and this, as you can see, is angled. There's just a slight drop down to this little tiny stub of a flipper, and then it's just easy to just drag your finger right over it. So if this jimping wasn't here, it might be a problem. When you take your time, you make sure your finger gets in the right place, it really locks in with that jimping and becomes no problem to deploy the blade. The action on this is extremely smooth. The detent is nicer than its counterpart here. It's easier to, and I don't know if that's because of the two detent holes, it allows it to get out of there easier, but it is super fast deployment and it is very comfortable. So I'm a huge fan of this action. It's very nice. Now I did say that the detent's a little bit weaker in comparison, which makes it a much nicer action. It is in no way weak to the point where the blade is not retained very well. It is really in there. I don't even know if I can see if I can shake it out. Ah, there we go. Yeah, you really got to work. It's in there really well. So it's kind of that perfect balance. I'm very happy with that. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to fall open, but it is a really, really nice knife to flip. Really nice. Solid lockup. There's zero blade play in any direction. No nothing. Solid like a vault. You have steel lock bar insert screwed in right there. You have nice beveling, chamfering, whatever you want to call it, on the inside of both sides, and I really like that. It's okay if it's on the lock bar side because that's where you're going to be putting pressure with your thumb, and that's where it's most important. But it's really nice when they have it on both sides because your thumb just kind of falls in there and you can kind of pry your thumb into there even easier. So that's really nice. And if you look closely, you'll notice that every single edge is a little chamfer, a little bevel on the inside here, and the inside, every single surface. It is really comfortable, finished exceptionally well. There's just no hot spots on this thing, and I'm telling you, it is so comfortable in the hand, it's ridiculous. Now I'm squeezing this for a reason because I want to show you a better lockup. For zero tolerance, and I hate to say that in a derogatory way because I still am a big fan of them. For zero tolerance, I think this is as good as I'm going to get, and I'm glad it's on this knife. I have squeezed, let me press because I think it slides a little bit more, yeah. Okay. You know what, that's pretty good. We're still at, let me see. Yeah, that's pretty solid. I'm really happy about that. That's about 50, let me see here. 55% lockup, maybe 50%, right in between there. That's really good. That's really good. Sorry about bumping the camera there. So I really wish that that was the lockup that could be achieved on this knife. And I am understanding that other people may have gotten some that do that, and I'm really happy for you. It's unfortunate that I wasn't able to get one that could do that because I would have liked to have kept that in my collection. But I'm really glad this one's locking up right. So that's wonderful. And that's another reason why I feel comfortable making this my large EDC user blade. You know, I have a lot of different knives I carry, okay? I carry a ton of different knives. But when I really fall in love with one, I carry it about as exclusive can get when you have a couple hundred knives, a couple hundred folding knives. And I'm going to be carrying this quite a bit. You know, as you know, the 940, I think for a medium to small size everyday carry is, you know, one of the best options out there. There's some other competitive offerings, but it's one of the best. And I've proven that time and time again to myself. I love the thing. It's super lightweight and it's just a great balance. I think this is going to be the big brother to that in a matter of speaking. I think it's going to be obviously much larger and, you know, more than twice the weight, or maybe it's about twice the weight. But at the size increase and all of the different added performance that you're going to, you know, the added things you're going to be able to do with it just because of its size, pretty cool. Pretty awesome. And I think it's really EDCable. You know, some people are like, you know, weight's not a big deal to me. I don't care if it's 7-8 ounces. That's cool. I've carried knives that are 7-8 ounces for weeks on end, and it was fine. It really was. But there's no way that it's almost like forgettable that it's in your pocket like this one is. And for its size, that's saying a lot. It's not quite to that point where you actually forget you're carrying it like the 940 does, because it literally is just stupid lightweight for a 3.5-inch blade. For a little more than an extra ½ inch, you're getting a knife that can be kind of put into a little bit more rolls. I really honestly believe that with this good jimping that you have in the back here, it's not super aggressive. It's by no means like a paramilitary 2 or anything like that, but it works. It gives you extra traction, no doubt about that. If you choke up on it, I really honestly think you could do some pretty fine work with this. And it does have very sharp pointy tip, beautiful blade design, and some good belly. I really think you could do some EDC light cutting with this, some really fine work. That being said, I also love the blade design and its length and its again, the design. I think it could be put into a tactical role. And the blade alone definitely does not determine if this could be a tactical or defensive knife. I realize that. It also has a ton to do with traction and ergonomics, and they go hand in hand. This is lacking high traction. especially this. This has a little bit better because you have these grooves and it's almost a textured surface. But it's still, by a defensive or tactical blade standards, my standards anyway, it's a little slick. Because of the extra curvature in the handle, the contouring, and the fact that it's a flipper, because that works as a hand stop, if you will. Because of how well this locks up in my hand, I would feel completely comfortable using this as a tactical folder or a defensive blade. So that's what I mean, is it falls into a lot of different roles. I mean, you name it, I think I could probably do it with this knife. And I'm talking about realistic things you should be doing with a folder. So, that's kind of got an edge on the 940. I would not put a 940 into a tactical role. Anything sharp and pointy can be put into that, but I just don't think it's designed for that, and I don't think it would excel in that. I think this probably would. So, very, very versatile knife offering here from Zero Tolerance. It is very expensive. If you're going to get your hands on it now, I think Custom Knife Factory still has some in stock. And I could be wrong about this. The way I remember it is after shipping, I think I paid around $515. They're going for $530 a pop now before shipping. So they're expensive. You're getting 204p steel. Focus. There you go. You're getting 204p steel, and that's basically the American equivalent to the Austrian M390. Very good steel, and in my opinion worth the price. But that's not the only reason for the price. The reason is you're getting a lot of great materials. There's some really intricate finishing on this. The tolerances are proper. They meet all my very picky expectations, which is saying a lot. And it does it in a very beautiful, sleek design. It looks really nice. It's very balanced, and it feels great in hand. It feels great in pocket. Everything down to the clip, I think, was designed really well. And I think for the price, especially since it is very exclusive, and you're not going to find these in the U.S. market, only on the secondary market. These were exclusive for Russian dealers. I think that definitely brings some value as well. Again, that's just my opinion. So overall, 2 thumbs up. This knife is absolutely gorgeous. Very happy with it. And I think anybody else that gets their hands on one will be as well. Its counterpart, like I said before, I really think it has a lot of potential. It's kind of, I'm just kind of sick of carbon fiber, so I was not really all that stoked to see the carbon fiber, especially this really generic looking carbon fiber. Just not a fan of it. And I'm just seeing carbon fiber on everything now. Well, what else could we do? Oh, let's throw carbon fiber on it. Really? There are so many other things you can do. Do some cool designs with some layered G10, or just do G10. There's different colors of G10. There's so many different things you can do. You could even do some cool coatings on the blades. Acid stonewash or DLC. There's so many different things. The nice thing I failed to mention on the other knife, the blade finish is really nice on most Zero Tolerances. And this one definitely. The flat, there's only a little portion of the flat here, and you can see it on the side of the flipper as well. It's got a really cool stonewash. I don't know if I'll be able to pick that up or not. Maybe a little bit there. And then it transitions on the grind here on both sides, the swedge as well, to a really cool, you've seen before on the 0801 and some other offerings, that machined satin finish. Really nice looking. Something so nice you really don't want to scratch up, because it does not hide scratch as well as you've seen on that other scratch over here. It's not like a stonewash where you don't even notice it. So very elegant looking. I think that, despite me not being a big fan of this very generic looking carbon fiber, again in my opinion, I do like how it ties in with this racing wheel pivot. I think it's very appropriate. I think it's very nice look overall. One thing to note, this pivot pin does vary a little bit. I've seen some other knife reviews, and these knives coming from Blade HQ, This polished outer lip around the perimeter of the pivot pin is not polished from the ones I've seen from Blade HQ. It just, the spokes, the 5 spokes go to the edge, polished like you see here, but there isn't this outer ring. So I don't really know which one I prefer more. I think they both look really good. I kind of like the pivot pin. I think it's pretty fitting with the carbon fiber, kind of that racing theme. Pretty nice. Cosmetically, anyway. The clip. It's kind of small. I don't think that's a problem, just an observation. I think it's noticeably smaller, in overall length. It's like 2/3 of this one. I think for such a long knife, I would prefer to have it a little bit longer. I don't want this big mass. I've seen some ridiculous pocket clips before, and they're coming down halfway or longer on a knife regardless of its size, and I'm like, come on. But on a small knife like a Benchmade Sequel, it's a really small EDC, this pocket clip size would be perfect. On something larger like this, I think it's still totally going to work, but I again just feel a little more comfortable when it's a little bit longer like that. If you look at where these actually make contact, it's very similar, as far as how far it comes down the pocket clip before it kind of would hold the knife into place. It's very similar, so I think this is probably going to give you just as much security as the other one, so that's great. And it gives you deep carry. You're going to have barely anything sticking out of the pocket. It's going to look like that. Now on a larger knife like this, I don't think that's is necessary. I actually prefer having a little bit more sticking out like this because it's such a large knife and you have so much to work with. You get a better grip on it when you want to get it out of your pocket. With a smaller knife, mid-sized to small EDC size knife, I much rather have a really deep carry, as deep as it can get, just for security, trying to keep that smaller knife in my pocket. More mass in the pocket means less chance of it falling out. I've said it before, and it's true. So, good pocket clip, steel just like on the other one. Very small, deep carry, the lanyard hole, and like I was mentioning before, you can actually switch this one and carry lefty. So, yay for lefties. That's pretty cool. And flow-through design, be very easy to keep gunk out. Steel pillars right here. And the same, everything else is pretty much the same. You have the jimping that rolls up here. Doesn't really tie in because it doesn't have that same backspace here, but I still think it looks nice. And you have the really aggressive jimping on the top of the flipper, which I've mentioned before. Very needed. Very much needed. The action is very nice. I believe they use the same exact ball bearings. Very nice deployment. It feels a little bit smoother. And no, it's not just because I like this knife better. I don't know if that's... Now, again, I haven't touched these since I got them back from Zero Tolerance. So I don't know. I haven't tweaked it. I could probably get these both just as smooth. After all, it is the same ball bearings. Now, depending on how things are machined, if they're machined both to the same tolerances and properly, then it is fact I'll be able to get them both just as smooth. Lube them up, clean them up, get the same tightness, no problem. If there's some variances or some machining flaws, which is not rare in carbon fiber, and I've seen that with Benchmade quite a bit, where depths are off a little bit, then yeah, it might not be, parallel on each side of the indentations machined inside each side of the scale where the ball bearings fit into. So if that's the case and things are a little misaligned, it's not going to be quite as smooth, but I don't think that's it. Zero Tolerance usually has some very good tolerances, hence their name, and I think this is very smooth now. I just noticed it's just a little bit smoother on this one here. The detent is stronger, not like mind-blowingly stronger, but you can notice it, you can tell, and you have to force it a little bit more to get that to pop out. I don't really think that's a negative. When you fondle knives as much as I do, this is just more enjoyable. I was driving back from the gun range yesterday. It's like an hour and 20 minutes each way, and each way, the whole way, I was flipping this knife. So maybe it's a little smoother because I broke it in too, I don't know. But I did find out one thing. Sorry to get distracted here, but I have to point this out. I don't know if this ever happened to you guys. I'm guessing that after an hour and a half of flipping this nonstop, yes, I have a problem, that it actually heats up the ball bearings, because it would still flip, but it started to kind of like, I'm not going to say bind up, but when I would close it, like I just showed you here, I'd do this, it was smooth, and then I would get down like here. It almost felt like there was some resistance, like I was, like the lube that was in there was like less viscous, and that it was starting to get a little bit of wear. And now it's just buttery smooth, or very smooth, and and it feels much better than what I was dealing with in the car. But yeah, I just wonder if you can like actually heat that up. But from what I was told, you don't want to lube your flipping knives, or any knife for that matter. You don't want to lube them at first. You want to break them in like this, because it allows it to polish the materials that it's rubbing against. So that way when you do lube it, it's very, very smooth. So I don't know if that's true. I'm definitely going to test that out though. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Anyway, very nice action. Feels great. Solid deployment. Very fast deployment. Very solid lockup. Too solid lockup if you ask me, because of that late engagement. And you know, that's the biggest flaw I've seen with this. I think I made that very clear. I'm glad to hear that a lot of other people are not having that problem. I hope that continues, and I hope that these are just a couple one-offs that are problematic. Otherwise, still very comfortable in the hand. You know, I mentioned that this knife is contoured, thus making it much more comfortable in the hand. It's not like night and day, okay? They're both very comfortable in the hand. But this just feels, even though this is a 1/2 inch and this is 0.56 inches thick, it really is noticeable in the hand. It really is. It just doesn't fill the hand as much. I don't have big hands by any means, but it just feels better when it's a little bit fatter in there and really fills the hand. When I cut on this, and I've done it already, it does kind of create, with being a really thin knife, almost like a hot spot, because it's kind of a sharp, narrow amount of force on the inside of your hand. But the side profile is exactly the same. It's the same design of the handle, so it's still very comfortable in the hand overall. Feels great. And again, very nice in the pocket. Just not quite as refined of a feel. I mean, this just feels like it was shaped for my hand. It's just wonderful. So, very, very great knife based on materials, and I like the overall design. But see, finger just slipped off there. That's what I'm talking about. The design is too close. You have to really make sure you get your finger in there, especially with a strong detent like that. But yeah, the lockup's a major problem. So if you're not experiencing that on this knife, I would just watch it and be careful, because it is so narrow. It's such a thin knife. And just be very careful and make sure that, you know, if you care about stuff like that, that it doesn't start slipping. And I highly recommend anytime you ever get a frame lock to do that test, to get it and just squeeze on it, because that's what's going to happen when you use it. And you want to make sure you actually know what's going on with your knife and what it's capable of should you have to use it. So anyway, I think they're pretty good value. $240. I've actually seen a couple people sell them for $220 for this model. It is S35VN steel, significantly inferior to 204P, but S35VN is wonderful blade steel. Okay, it's great. It's a slight step up from S30V. I don't even know if anybody would ever notice the slight step up I'm referring to in performance when you're actually using it. I don't think you're going to see it. They're both very corrosion resistant. They both cut very well. It's nice to strop them once in a while if you can, to try to keep that edge fine. But other than that, it's a really good offering, a really good selection of steel, and it's readily available. 204P just takes it to a whole new level. It's just better in every way, in my opinion. And you're probably going to be seeing a lot more 204P from Zero Tolerance, which I think a commenter made a very good point. He said that that's more in line with their theme. You know, they're proudly built in the USA, and I love that. Well, guess what? This steel's manufactured in the USA. 204P is USA-made variant of, or variation of, M390. M390 is Austrian-made. So it just makes more sense that we get our own American steel in there, right? So you're probably going to see more of that. It's more readily available. It's going to be less expensive for Zero Tolerance to manufacture and put into their blades, to their knives. And I've already seen some of their existing models. The 0456. It's hard for me to keep track of all these, but it has that really cool slicer grind, and they offered it with the carbon fiber, and they offered it with G10 with LMAX. The one with the carbon fiber had M390. I've been seeing those since they've been so rare. I have one in M390. I've been seeing them do production runs in 204P. So I think that that's what they're doing. They're just transitioning out the M390 because they probably can't get their hands on it. Anyway, overall, it's been a very bittersweet experience. I think Zero Tolerance is still a great company, and I think they still offer really good knives. I would just be, if you have some of the same perspectives, there's a big if there. If you have some of the same concerns and perspectives that I do, I would just watch and be careful and cautious about their lockup. And that's something I'm going to be doing going forward. Hopefully, maybe they'll watch this part 2, and maybe they'll be able to straighten that out. Again, maybe, I would say maybe it was just I got a bad batch. I know that's not true because I have a lot of Zero Tolerance knives, and again, at least 90% of them, almost all of them, have later lockup than I want, by a long shot. Like 70% lockup when I'm actually using it. No bueno. So, man, I'm telling you, I'm a fan. I'm less of a fan. I'm still a huge fan. But I'm going to be going to alternatives that can give me better lockup. Because, again, the way I view that is I'm going to use my knife, and I'm going to find a knife that gives me more lifespan. I'm going to look at it, that same analogy like a vehicle and the odometer. I want those miles as low as I can get them. So that way, the way I perceive it, when I'm buying a new knife, it's actually a new knife, and I'm going to get a lot of longevity out of it. So I wish nothing but the best for Zero Tolerance. I think they're doing a lot of things right. I love their designs. I love their collaborations. I love the materials and the fit and the finish that they use. Their customer service is, I would say, overall excellent. I think it's just unfortunate that this particular design or this particular blade tang is just a no-go, and I'm really glad that they were able to get this one squared away for me. I look forward to using this, and I'll probably do a follow-up in a year or two after beating the hell out of this to show everyone how it's been holding up. That is, if you guys want to see something like that. So, as always, let me know your thoughts on that. If you want me to do a follow-up video on this knife after getting its butt kicked. And then anything else, your thoughts are always welcomed. As you have noticed in this video, I reference them, I mention them. I really appreciate people's feedback. I'm by no means an expert, so I'm learning a lot from these experiences, much like that LMAX experience with Microtech. I know that some manufacturers can do LMAX right, and when they do it right, man, it's awesome. So I'm learning a lot. I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you guys subscribing and liking. And as always, thanks for coming back, and take care.